There we go. Welcome. This is May 27th, 2021. This is an event put on by the Law Office of David P. Shapiro. We have Jamie Beck, Jamie Johnson, and Armand King, our panelists. We're about to open it up to the public shortly, and I'm going to do that right now. All right, people are making their way into the room. I'm going to continue to monitor the guest room or the waiting room and admit people as they apply. Welcome to those of you who have joined us at this point in time. My name is David Shapiro. I'm the owner and managing partner of the Law Office of David Shapiro. We are the host and or sponsors of this great event tonight. And, this is an event for the community, and it's an event to let everybody know how we individually and collectively can help those in our community who need our help. And it's a great event. We're so happy to have everyone here. In addition to myself from the firm on video, we have partner Stefano Molea is here. We have our new director of operations, Michael Dool, is here. I see we have some other team members that have signed on, and people are pouring in. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator and our firm's associate attorney, Allie Keegan.
Hi, as you know, I'm Allie Keegan. I work at the Law Office of David Shapiro. Thank you all for being here, whether you're tuning in on this Zoom or also through Facebook or remotely and listening in that way. I want to thank all of our panelists tonight for taking the time. These are three incredibly busy individuals that are taking time out of their schedules to really come together as a community and talk about ways we can come together and solve a pretty prevalent issue, both in the community, locally, and nationwide. So thank you all for those joining us. If you have any questions throughout, by all means, please put them in the chat. As they pop into your head, no problem. And what we'll do at the end with extra time is I'll go through them and we'll get you the answers you're looking for from our panelists. So without further ado, thank you all for being here. And the first question for our panelists will be to just please briefly introduce yourself, your organization, and to the extent that you're comfortable with it, giving us an idea of how you kind of came to found your individual organizations. So Jamie Beck, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Well, hi everyone, good evening, and just thank you to the entire Shapiro Law Firm for hosting this event. It's not often, I know the three of us do a lot of public speaking, a lot of awareness events, but it's not usually a private law firm that invites us to speak and brings the community together. So just thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate it. So I run Free to Thrive. We are a San Diego-based nonprofit. We provide legal services to human trafficking survivors, and we do that both through direct legal services through our staff attorneys and through pro bono attorneys. Like Allie is one of our amazing pro bono attorneys doing great work for our clients, and we appreciate all the help we get from outside attorneys. In terms of what we'll talk a bit more, I think, during the panel about what we do to help survivors. But in terms of how I got to this work, like many of you watching, I attended a training and I learned about this issue. I attended a number of trainings actually, and learned that this was a huge issue impacting San Diego. And many people have heard about human trafficking. Most people don't really know what it is or how it happens, or don't really realize how prevalent it is in their own communities. And when you learn about it, I personally feel like you have a duty or an obligation to do something to help. And I certainly felt compelled to do that. I started volunteering, mentoring survivors with a local nonprofit. I started organizing lawyers around this issue and trying to coordinate pro bono services for survivors. And then started advocating for legislation to help survivors, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And as I was doing all of this, I realized that there was a huge gaping hole in San Diego, which was that there was not a dedicated legal service provider for survivors in San Diego. And so started developing and eventually launched Free to started in 2016 and started serving in 2017.
Thank you. Jamie Johnson, let's kick it to our other Jamie on the panel.
All right. Second time this week we've had two Jamie. We've both been on a panel. That's kind of cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Jamie Johnson. I am the CEO and founder of Sisters of the Streets. We are a nationwide virtual virtually available resource, but we are based out of San Diego originally, and we are an empowerment organization that focuses on different, all three, prevention, intervention, as well as aftercare. And we believe in empowerment, and we believe in harm reduction, and we believe in prevention through conversations and solution focused approaches around the root vulnerabilities in society that create all facets that ultimately become sex trafficking, human trafficking, and all of the above. So we really focus a lot on direct services, mentorship, and really trying to be a gap filling organization. And so our services change and adapt as the needs change and adapt. And we were founded, I founded Sisters of the Streets in 2015 during my transition out of my own exploitation and really just needing a safe space to be able to vent what was going on in my life. And I decided to utilize Facebook as that safe space, and that created the opportunity for people to come forward. And I realized that so many people just need community, need sisterhood and brotherhood, and need to be able to share their stories authentically without judgment, and also get the support services and know that there's options available outside of their current lifestyles that they are living. And so that's how Sisters of the Streets got started and has expanded since then. Thank you for having me, and thank you for hosting this event. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for coming to share your own lived experience as well as that you have as an expert in the field. So Armand, if you don't mind giving us a preview of you and what you do.
Absolutely. My name is Armand King. I am the COO and co-founder of a local San Diego nonprofit, Paving Great Futures. Our mission is to increase the health and wealth in underserved communities in order for marginalized and at-risk individuals to thrive socially, economically, and politically. We do this through several programs in middle schools, serving high-risk, high-need communities, through leadership development programs, culinary entrepreneur training programs, women's entrepreneur training programs, and a few other things I won't even mention right now. But we service our community in many different ways, including right now being the largest COVID-19 crisis relief food distributors in the county of San Diego, servicing over 10,000 individuals monthly. Yeah, we've been in this organization, started this organization in 2012, got official nonprofit status in 2013, going on 9 years now strong, no sleep, nonstop, no breaks. We are our group of founders and staff. We come from the streets that we serve. We didn't go to school for this. This was something that was in us, and personally myself, I was on the opposite side of the fence. I was that once upon a time what you would call the bad guy, somebody who most of society would want to just lock up and throw away the key. And I was that high risk kid, formerly, which people call a trafficker now, but back in my day at 16 years old, my peer group, 60%, I would say at least, male and female, went into the lifestyle of pimping and prostitution. Fortunately, I was blessed to live long enough to make it out. Out of 8 of my best friends, I'm only 1 of 4 that's still alive. This program and this organization was based out of a need that was not being addressed by society to really, really help the individuals that were in the most need. So I'm here, and I want to lend my voice, my body, my soul, and everything I have inside of me to help put a dent in this epidemic of human sex trafficking in any way I can. And if education is the way, let's do it. I believe my voice is needed. It's like having, having one side of the, of the equation, having one leg on the table, 2 legs on the table, everything else is going to fall right off. We need all sides in this mission and this fight to, help change the world. So I'm a puzzle piece. They call me the puzzle. I'm a piece of the puzzle without the muzzle. So there's no questions that you can't ask. Please ask these questions, because I search hard, far and wide. You probably will not find another guy like me out here willing to help.
And Armand, I think you made a great point, because as a criminal defense firm, a big reason why we as a group wanted to do this was to help get rid of the stigmatization of any sort of a criminal history. How, for starters, being a survivor of some sort of exploitation and having a criminal history aren't mutually exclusive. There's a lot of times a lot of overlap. And we wanted to help show that even if you do have a criminal history or you know of people that do, that really has no bearing on what kind of potential you have moving forward. And a big focus we'll have tonight is on transferable skills. And you touched on it, how a lot of the skills that have made you all as successful as you are today, you didn't really learn in a classroom. So Armand, if you don't mind, can you kind of define transferable skills for me and explain to all of us what you all mean when you're talking about transferable skills and how skills you learned maybe on the streets can help people still excel later on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. And transferable skills can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But for the sake of this conversation, I know the direction we're going. Transferable skills are literally skills that we learned and we took in the streets that may have been directed in a negative way, or we used it in a negative way. Once we realized that those traits and skills could be transferred and used in a positive professional world, we excelled. And a lot of those things, when you're trapped in the lifestyle, when you're young and your mind's not exposed to these skills, and knowing that you have skills, you remain in these toxic lifestyles. You remain in the pimping and prostitution subculture because you don't think you can do anything else. And sometimes you've been in for so long, actually looking outside of that world that you're in. Your vision's foggy. You don't think you can do anything else, so you just stay in, and it's like you lose hope. And you drown and you die. So organizations like Minds, like even Free to Thrive and Sisters of the Streets, what we do is we help individuals see beyond their past and actually realize those things that you may have took as negatives. If you use them in the right way, to be positive. At 21 years old, I had made over $250,000 within 6 months. I was on my way to be a millionaire selling marijuana, cannabis, which was illegal at the time, but now it's on the stock market. Had that been today with that same product, I'd be, an entrepreneur mogul right now. So just taking those same skills I had as a kid or even giving a different product and that same ambition and drive, transferring those skills into something positive. If I had the correct mentorship, the correct opportunity was placed, in my hands and taught the right way, maybe, could have done something else. So those skills were there. And it takes people like us that have those lived experiences and have been there to show those individuals that may still be in to take those skills, have faith in themselves, believe in themselves, and do other things with it.
And it sounds pretty clear that highlighting these skills is beneficial across the board for people of any background. But Jamie Johnson, if you don't mind, could you explain to us why highlighting those transferable skills, especially for those that are transferring out of sexual exploitation, why it's particularly important for survivors of that?
Sure. And everything that Armand said too, I wanted to add to that transferable skills. What I'm even learning through this process of discussing this and creating a book around this is that we were very hyper focused on the skills that can be transferred into, tangible skills into the business world. But transferable skills, I'm realizing too, are emotional as well, and mental, and being able to be resilient and being able to transfer that into a way that's healthy. And so that's been a learning journey for me in this process, along with Armand, in creating a book that we have coming out. And helping me in my healing journey to realize that those are skills that we can focus on as well and empower with this population. I believe that it's important to hyper highlight these things because so many of us come from lack of traditional education. Majority of us have not graduated high school. Majority of us did not go to college. Most people, you're hustling, making money 24 hours a day, you don't got time to go to college. So that wasn't really an option for a lot of us. And even if it was, we didn't decide to take that option. And so when we're stepping into the world where it is so prominent or focused on having an extensive resume and you have a 10-year job gap history. And how do you explain that when you go into an interview and you have a competition of 50 other people who have letters behind their names and have graduated college, have Ivy League backgrounds possibly, and you have high competition? How do you equate that to lived experience? And so highlighting these skills and then being able to communicate why those skills are important and why they're just as valuable as that traditional education or those letters or all that time spent learning through books, valuing that of equal value, if not higher value in certain cases, to the lived experience, I think is super important in the solution aspect, not just for those trying to transition out of this lifestyle, but for our community to understand and rehumanize people in a way where we are valuing people for their knowledge and expertise and experience versus what we think society has projected on us to be considered successful.
Thank you for that. And we see it all the time on our end as well, where a lot of times you have individuals with some of the brightest people we've ever met have been our clients at the firm, and they have all of those raw skills and that raw talent. And the issue is there are legal barriers as well that can disqualify you from employment or economic success because of your record. I was going to ask Jamie Beck if she could shed a little bit of light on that, but I don't know if Jamie's, oh, yeah. So Jamie, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about the legal obstacles and hurdles that survivors meet along the way, even though they're doing everything right once they head in that direction.
Sure. So, you know, what you've heard, my good friends Armand and Jamie both talk about, kind of alluding to some of the legal barriers. I mean, if you're wrapped up in the legal system with criminal charges, that creates a huge barrier to employment. You know, Jamie talked about, you know, not having, you know, a degree on your resume. Imagine what happens when a potential employee has a background check run. The biggest barrier that our clients face in getting out of that life and into, you know, whatever life that they want to go into is having a criminal record. That's their kind of number one issue. And you know, people often wonder, well, you know, kind of why do human trafficking have a criminal record? What is like, and some people may think, oh, well, maybe it's prostitution. And the reality is, like, now prostitution is not being charged nearly as much as it used to, which is great. But that's actually not the most common charge that we see in our clients' criminal records. And many of our clients were criminalized when that was a lot more prevalent. So those records go really far back and they don't go away ever. We have clients with, you know, 15, 20-year-old prostitution charges and lots of them. But the most common charge we see on our clients' background is drugs. And then we see a lot of like theft, burglary, and then kind of a whole host of other crimes, batteries and assaults, you know, false ID to a police officer, DUIs. And when we start to go into what their charges are, when in their life it happened relative to when they're being exploited or trafficked, almost all the time we're able to identify a connection between their exploitation and their charges. And it's either, you know, it's something that they were either forced into doing by their exploiter or trafficker, or something that happened during their exploitation that was related to it. Or sometimes it's afterwards that they couldn't move forward with their lives because of their exploitation. They may have continued to engage in sex work even after they were trafficked because they had no other option. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't, you know, do anything else because society had created that barrier for them. And so they continue to engage in that. They continue to use drugs as a coping mechanism to heal from their trauma. And so, or they stole for their basic needs because they couldn't get a job and because they couldn't take care of themselves financially. Our clients also have a really hard time with poor credit. Oftentimes traffickers use their name to, you know, to take out loans, to buy cars, things that completely destroy their credit. Sometimes there are, you know, fraudulent transactions on their credit because of their exploitation, and it makes it impossible not only to, you know, get a car, to rent a place, to buy a house. It can make it hard to open a bank account. We have a lot of clients who have trouble opening bank accounts because of their background and because of what happened to them. So those are some of the barriers. And then there's a lot of kind of resulting barriers. You know, what does that mean? You know, if an employer runs your background and still hires you, we have a lot of clients who then get harassed or worse by their employers because they know their background, because they saw something on their record, or you know, a lot of other things that kind of result from that. The economic issues, you can't get housing, it's hard to support your family. So there's a lot more, but those are a few of the barriers our clients face.
And while there are organizations, incredible organizations like Free to Thrive that can help survivors clean up their records so that their employment prospects will be better and all of that, I think an unfortunate truth that we're still dealing with today is that stigma where possibly, let's say you do clear up your record and you don't have as glaring of an issue there, but you still have that stigma where employers might think it's a liability to have you on, or you have to deal with that kind of societal hurdle as well. So maybe Jamie Johnson and Armand, what would you guys say to those employers that might be a little more hesitant to take on someone that has a criminal record, especially for if they're a survivor of human trafficking, but really if they have any sort of criminal history?
I'd say take the chance. There's people who you've got people on your payroll right now that have just haven't been caught for crimes. There's not a person on this Zoom right now that hasn't done something wrong, that hasn't done something that society would say was wrong or illegal. And, just think about these laws that are created. At one point, slavery was a law. It was legal. So we can't judge people based off of a mistake. And I know we'd hate to be judged off of our mistakes. So I say give them a shot. And definitely, I've been that person that have been denied jobs because of even my criminal history was 10 years old, and I had a 10-year-old record and had been clean, no problems for 10 years, and still denied a job. Passed the interview, got to the second phase, background check came back, and they couldn't hire me. The job was mad they couldn't hire me based off of the way their system was set up, and it was horrible. I would have been an excellent employee for them, and so definitely, I would just say just give them a shot. For sure. And don't judge them based off of a mistake they made in the past. And remember, none of us are free from sin or mistakes. Nobody.
Yeah, I would just add into just in the bigger picture of things, and I would feel horrible if I forgot to shout out Free to Thrive for my own just how much of a support they've been to me on my legal side, not only in the process and the support through, like Armand said, like coming out and doing all this work in advocacy, helping as more people than I ever imagined I could help to support, and still to be denied positions that I am absolutely a shoo-in for, that I would be perfect for, because they literally, like Armand said, can't hire me because of their policy, because of their protocol. That is a hindrance, right? Because that means that I have to either choose to continue to be denied. I have to work through my legal background, which is possible, but we also don't talk much about the re-traumatization that happens in the vacatur process and in the process of getting your record expunged, and how that's nothing in somebody like Jamie Beck's or your law firm's control. That's something on like a DOJ level and different processes that are in place. The amount of depth you have to go into, I'm going through my vacatur process right now and really rehash and relive details that I didn't even remember, to be able to present to a judge, just to say like, hey, look at all the work I've done. Can you please take this off my record so I can go work with youth, so that I don't have some places prostitution is considered a sex crime and I can't work with youth, but I work with them anyways, because that's where my passion is, but I can't get paid for it. And so really I'm putting myself in a position where I'm burning out and ultimately having to choose, do I go back to my self-sufficiency through survival choices, or do I continue to try to push forward? And not everybody stays in that space of resilience where people get tired, and you don't constantly want to have to keep fighting. A lot of people have been fighting their whole life, and they get to the point where they're like, man, when do I get to stop fighting? And when is it ever going to be enough? Right. And so, I don't know where I was going on that tangent, but I just wanted to shout out Free to Thrive because they have helped me with that aspect, as well as family court issues that I've had to go through, because we think sometimes that when people leave this lifestyle, you leave it all at that door and it's all behind you. It's not. We still choose similar relationships. We still choose similar choices, because those thought patterns don't just go away overnight. And so we get into toxic situations and sometimes need support that we can't afford a lawyer for, and we don't even know how to fill the paperwork out, or we don't know what approach to take. So So shout out to Free to Thrive, shout out to Jamie on just that, because they have been a huge support in that process for me that I wouldn't have taken the step to take otherwise if they weren't available. I forgot the question, but hopefully that was supposed to be the conversation that happened. But if you want to repeat the question, I can answer it, but I totally forgot the question.
No, I think that was perfect, honestly, because it really highlights, and what you had mentioned was vacatur, which for those of us that aren't attorneys or human trafficking experts is a very unique law in California, where we've heard of expungement, where you can have old convictions kind of cleaned up, or sealing arrest records. And California vacatur laws allows for, if you have any, well, most sorts of convictions, not super serious ones, but some convictions, like Jamie Beck had mentioned, where it doesn't necessarily have to be prostitution, it can be, but it could be petty theft or drug cases that are a direct result from being a survivor of trafficking. You can kind of do both. You can expunge it and seal your arrest records. And Free to Thrive assists in doing that after the fact for survivors. And Jamie Beck, if you don't mind, I mean, what other laws, what other gaps in the law do you see that would really help end the criminalization of survivors, so that it's not just an option for them after the fact, but how can we stop criminalizing this type of phenomena to begin with?
Thanks, Sally. And I'm really excited to answer this question, because Free to Thrive is working on a statewide coalition on a new bill. So I was actually involved in advocating for the vacatur law back in 2016, when that bill was working its way through the California legislature. And that creation of that law is what launched Free to Thrive, is we needed lawyers to help survivors. We had this law that helps survivors for the records. Now we need lawyers to do the work. Now we actually have two bills. One is a bill to improve the vacatur law, and that's a full bill, but it would be a huge change for our clients. That's AB 262 for anybody who's really interested. This other one, though, this is to your question of, oh, my internet's unstable. If you can't hear me, let me know. I'll turn off my camera.
No, we can't hear you.
You're good. Oh, not
You're
anymore.
frozen on my end, but maybe it's my connection. Okay.
Well, she's getting her internet back. I remembered the question. Why?
Do it. Let's go.
Why employers should, what advice to employers, or why they should hire us and give us, like Armand said, giving a chance. But I think I was trying to say also in the bigger picture too, anybody who knows me or has heard me speak before knows that I'm very big on humanity. And I think going with what Armand said, of that none of us are innocent, right? We've all done something. It's just sometimes a matter of if we got caught or not, like he had mentioned. Thinking of being a part of the solution, not just to sex trafficking, but to community societal issues that really plague us, that we all have claimed to have issues with, right? How are you going to be a part of the solution? And as a business owner and as a community partner, I believe we all have a responsibility to do that within whatever lane we have been put in. If you've been put in a lane to be a small business owner, big business owner, you, I feel, have an obligation to provide opportunity to those that could be huge assets, but maybe have these barriers. And so thinking of how we can be a part of the bigger solution is always going to be really important. And that's always going to start with us and what opportunity we have to extend to others. And so I just wanted to add that on to what Armand already had pretty much covered.
And really quick too, and don't look at it, talking to the employers, don't look at it as you're giving a handout. You're actually giving a hand up to yourself, because you might be missing out on some really, really excellent individuals who just didn't go through the traditional backgrounds or have that traditional resume. I'm thinking about the jobs that I had just with the skills that I gained from the streets. Once I realized I could take those and apply those to the professional world, even working simple jobs as a restaurant, as a waiter, knowing I know how to communicate and watching how their Yelp reviews jump. That's just, I'm taking that one job. Thinking about we have two survivors that work for Paving Great Futures on our staff. One was in the game for 20 years. One was in for 14. Both of them are in universities right now and killing it. They're because of their tenacity, teaching them, transferring the stuff they had in the streets and now utilizing it, their communication, their networking, their marketing. Like, you're missing out, employer, for looking past these individuals based on a blemish in their record that they happen to get caught for, or a background that does not look like yours or the traditional people used to hiring. I often say people that come from the game are sometimes sharper than Harvard and Yale graduates. They have learned business, just not the traditional way that you would like. So don't miss out on your opportunity to get by not giving them an opportunity, because it could help your business excel.
And before I circle back to Jamie Beck, I was going to ask you that, Armand, as well, what kind of skills you had harnessed. And I'd like to know from Jamie Johnson too, if you don't mind, how Armand mentioned identifying those skills, knowing how to talk to people, how you can use that to your advantage to succeed here. How did that help you as well, Jamie, with your own healing experience?
Gotta buy our book to find out the answer to. No, I'm just kidding. Shameless
plug.
plug.
The book too. Do both. Why not both?
We're not on pre-sale yet, so that's not an option. So I'll just go ahead and answer. The healing journey for me, in a nutshell, just empowering, to realize that something for me, why I chose outward focus, why I chose nonprofit work, why I chose outreach and things like that, is because something, when I saw the spark in people's eyes to realize that somebody just cared to like stop and talk to them for 5 minutes. I remember that feeling. I remember standing in elevators and being overlooked. I remember sitting in hotel lobbies and crying and like wondering, why isn't anybody asking me what's wrong? Like, why are people just walking by? I remember that inhumane feeling. And so being able to offer that to others was just so rewarding. But when I was able to offer it to myself, and not even offer it to myself, when I was able to really be authentically myself in the movement, whatever that meant, whatever repercussions that meant, that brought in the right people like Armand, like Jamie, like people that were allowing me to be authentically myself, who were pouring into me just as much as I was pouring back into the world. And so what that did is they were able to bring that spark out in me to be like, hey, you're really good at such and such, you're really good at such and such, you're really good at, and I'm like, man, that sounds like we could type that into Google and turn that into a resume skill. And that sounds like I'm really smart and really intelligent and really eloquent, and I can do more than what society has told me that I can do. And I don't have to have these limitations on myself. And so, yeah, empowerment. It empowered me to continue to want to dive into myself to see, okay, what other skills do you have? Like, what else can you do? And really, then I got really into doing it for other people. Like, I love to sit and show people how they can create a 10-page resume by literally just adding in all of these skills that they didn't even know existed, with just things like customer service, or really getting them to see that their experience and their trauma was not a waste of time. And I think once we realize that our life was not a waste of time, when people have shown us sympathy for so long, or tried to oversympathize with us, or tried to deem us a bad person, that in itself is a huge healing aspect. And that is what transferable skills have done for me, to be able to continue to seek and desire to seek more growth. What other transferable skills do I have? What else can I do without now it's like a challenge. Like, what else can I do without going to college? Like, what else can I do? Not to demean college, but for those of us, I don't like school. So, I'm not trying to go back at 33. I'm trying to build an empire and a legacy off of my life and my particular set of skills and blessings that I have been given through my experiences. So it brought empowerment, and it brought the right people around me, because that empowerment allowed me to be authentically myself.
And it sounds like, you've all seen survivors and dealt with them. It sounds like that is really common, to find that sense of self within you. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But
No,
both
definitely.
is that fair to say that that you can kind of see that new growth as people learn those skills as they go, with, frankly, all three of your help?
You find, yeah, you see people come into, you don't know yourself when you're in survival. You don't know yourself. You don't have time to know yourself. When you're in trauma, you don't have time to get to know yourself, because you are just trying to get to that next moment, not even the next day. You're just trying to get to that next moment. So you're doing things that are not authentic to you. And so being able to sit in stillness, for me, personally, sit in stillness and it feels uncomfortable. Like, don't get me wrong, like still, I'm like, wait, this is too calm. Like, let me cause a little chaos or something. Getting out of that self-sabotage mentality has been another skill that I've had to learn. And so, yeah, just learning self through understanding that I don't have to go to some extreme to learn a whole bunch of new skills. I just need to transfer and empower the ones that I already have within me and master them. And I don't have to try to put myself on a timeline with anybody else, because my unique life and my unique experience is valuable, and I am going to be on the correct path as long as I stay true to those skills and be blessed to add to them. But if not, whatever I have already is enough. And knowing that you're enough and knowing that you are whole as is, for me, has been that self-examination and learning self and learning what brings me joy, which also partners in, we don't have time to get into it, but partners in with things like sobriety, because you don't have to cover those emotions. You don't have to try to hide those feelings. And so there's a whole ripple effect of where empowerment and sense of self really comes into the arena of the full solution. Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic now and be quiet and let you guys talk.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think it lends to the point that what you just mentioned, I'm not going to out everyone's ages on this call, but I think you probably have some insight about yourself that a lot of the rest of us don't have, because we didn't have that experience. And it goes into the diversity of experience and background that makes things like places of employment and everything so much more valuable when they have people with diverse experiences like that. So thank you for sharing that. And Jamie, Beck, I'm sorry, I lost track of where we were at with the legal status, but if you don't mind, kind of what is in the pipeline that people should be supporting, what's kind of already in the works legally that can really help us address this issue. And if there's something that we need to start from scratch, what would you suggest for that as well?
All right, well, hopefully my Wi-Fi will behave. So the bill that I'm so excited to talk to you about is AB 124. Please go look it up. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll put a fact sheet in the chat, and I'll put the link to, if anyone wants to pull it up, to the bill language. But I'm going to try to break down what is a pretty complex bill for the lawyers on the call, especially the criminal defense lawyers. You guys are going to love this, and I encourage you to dive into it. For the non-lawyers, I'm going to try to break it down into making it simple to understand. There's three parts of this bill. The first part is pre-conviction. Before somebody is ever convicted of a crime, what can we do to help? Well, this bill would expand. There's an affirmative defense already for human trafficking survivors that says, I was forced to commit this crime by my trafficker. This bill would expand the affirmative defense to include victims of interpersonal violence and sexual assault, which would really go a long way to criminalize survivors. The data in terms of, survivors of all of these forms of violence in our legal system is appalling. So that's the first part. The second part is at sentencing. And at sentencing, it would essentially require judges to take into account certain factors at sentencing that oftentimes don't get considered. If they have a really trauma-informed defense attorney, they hopefully will identify these things in a client's background and bring it to the table for the judge to consider as like mitigating factors. But this would actually require judges to take these things into account. One being trauma, two being youthfulness. And I'm breaking down a lot of language that's in the bill, so you're gonna have to go read it for yourself, so I'm oversimplifying. And three, if they are a victim of the same interpersonal violence, human trafficking, sexual violence. And then the third part of this bill is post-sentencing. It would expand the vacatur law that we've been talking about that's so powerful, and would expand it to include interpersonal violence and sexual violence. So this bill would go so far to creating a much more trauma-informed criminal justice system, and really understanding people as whole people and understanding the context of what had happened to them before they committed that crime. What's the context in which that crime was committed, which so often goes unnoticed and unaddressed by our system. So I'm beyond overjoyed at the potential. This is probably going to the floor of the California Assembly next week. So if you are really excited about this like me, please call your state assembly member, call their office. It'll take you literally 1 minute to do next week and say, vote yes for AB 124, please, please, please. And tell them to vote yes for AB 262 while you're doing it. Thank you. I'll get off my soapbox now.
What you had mentioned as part of the bill is being trauma informed. And I think the term itself, I learned for the first time, maybe when I found Free to Thrive and did a Free to Thrive training. And we do it ourselves in criminal defense a bit, where we try to be mindful of things we say, where we don't like using the word defendant. It's our client, or we use their name as a human being. And we're not saying the defendant. We don't call the prosecution the people, because they are prosecutors and they're not actually indicative of the people. And we try to be mindful of how we phrase things. And I've heard a lot of terms. I don't know if I've heard anyone say the word victim yet on this call. And please no one fact check me on that, because I'm not sure, but I don't remember anyone saying. It's always survivors and things like that. So Jamie, if you don't mind letting everyone know little things that we can be doing on a day-to-day basis as we talk about human trafficking, little adjustments we can make to be more trauma informed, that would be really helpful. And then even Armand as well, it applies to what Jamie Johnson had been saying about, we just need to stop dehumanizing these people that have been criminalized in any way, shape, or form. So what we as a group could do to help chip away at that, if anyone has any insight, I would open up to all three of you.
I just want to make sure we pay attention to the males involved too. Like, I'm actually for the past few years have been a court expert, expert witness, and just to help them with defense attorneys from all over America. A lot of federal cases, state cases, and there's a lot of the men since this whole human sex trafficking became a hot ticket item, where people are now paying attention to it, where they didn't before. I was in the game for over 10 years, and law enforcement, people knew and didn't care. They turned a blind eye to it. And now that it's so hot that there's men being arrested, getting charged, getting football numbers that may or may not have been involved. I have one case where the individual, he just made a post on Facebook. And because of that, that was enough evidence to bring him into court with no victim. I have 2 cases right now I'm working on where there is no victim. So I just want to make sure we are well-rounded with this, looking at people as people, and that goes to the men involved too. I don't condone the behavior of pimping or trafficking, whatever you want to call it, but there does need to be a humanization for everybody involved, and really looking beyond the surface and what's being said. And unfortunately, I'm probably the only lived experience pimp expert out there right now. So there's prosecutors that are sending people away for many, many years with no real defense. You have these law enforcement experts that come on, and their word is taken as golden and platinum, spill whatever they say, when really and then there's no defense. Most defense attorneys aren't even knowledgeable enough to defend this quote unquote trafficker or pimp who may or may not have been involved in understanding the complexity of trafficking. There's several different forms of trafficking. When it comes to where my expertise is with urban domestic human sex trafficking, to have a label, really just pimping and prostitution, where sometimes the male and the female are equally involved and engaged in the act. And they're doing it as a team, or as a partnership, as a couple, even as a relationship thing. And they're just poor individuals going after money. Those are also cases. And I just want to say that and make sure that's known across the board, that if we're going to humanize, let's humanize and not choose and be selective with our humanization.
I think that's a great point. And you had mentioned how some defense attorneys shouldn't be defending those types of cases. And I think a big part of that is that some people don't take the time to get to know the people they're representing. And if you're not doing that, you have no business in this profession, whether you represent a survivor of human trafficking or a trafficker. And I think it's a great point that you can't lose the humanity in it, no matter what role you play, whether you are a prosecutor, a defense attorney, or an advocate for these individuals. And I think that was a great point. And as far as keeping the humanity in it, Jamie Johnson and Jamie Beck, I mean, what can we do on the other end as well when we're dealing with the survivors in those cases to kind of do what Armand had suggested as well, but for people in that particular situation?
I'm happy to kick it off, and I really do appreciate what Armand said, and completely agree. We've spent many, many hours together talking about these issues, and just to even put a finer point on that is, if you look at the vulnerabilities that lead somebody to be trafficked and the vulnerabilities that lead somebody to become a trafficker, they're the exact same vulnerabilities. They had the same childhood, the same experiences that put them on that path, and until we get to those root causes, we do not end human trafficking. And the reality is, people love talking about, let's help the survivors, let's help the victims, and we need to. And that's my job every day, and I love that work. It's what gives me purpose in life. But that's not enough. I could do my job all day long. Jamie can do her job all day long for the rest of our lives, and we will not end human trafficking until we get to the root causes of this issue. And if we actually eliminate those root causes, we eliminate it altogether. We help everybody, right? The reality is, those are very complex issues to address, that it's much easier to say, oh, let's help the victims, or let's have a, let's do this or let's do that. But when you talk about how do we end human trafficking, well, we have to eliminate poverty, we have to eliminate racism and inequality and structural racism, and fix our foster system. We have to support our LGBTQ community. I mean, there's so many deep root causes to human trafficking that are very complex issues that are very difficult to fix as a society. So, and in terms of, how we as a community better serve this population, it's really about compassion and empathy. At the end of the day, our clients are, as Jamie has said, they're strong, resilient people. They are wise, they are strong, and they don't want to be pitied, or they want to be treated like everybody else. And they want, as lawyers, they want you to advocate for them. They want you to care about them and their outcome. They want you to understand their experience and their trauma and take that into account in terms of how you interact with them. I love, Allie, you talking about the words that you use as a law firm. That's really important. It humanizes people. I mean, our clients have been dehumanized their entire lives, and neglected, forgotten, abused, and they just want to be treated like equals. They want to be partners in their legal issues, not and not to be forgotten about, or they want you to work just as hard on their case if it's a pro bono case as you would on a paying client, for example. That's really important. And then to the trauma-informed lawyering piece, it is such a complex issue, and there's so much to talk about that we would need many more hours to. So I'm just going to put a link to our trainings in the chat so that anybody who's really interested in that can take a look. We have a whole lot of trainings on trauma-informed lawyering and a lot of other things. So if I especially criminal lawyers, but all lawyers need to understand trauma to better serve your clients. You do personal injury, you should understand trauma. You work with trauma victims every day. There's so many other employment law. There's many other areas of the law where you work with trauma victims and need to understand this, not just in the context we're talking about.
And their trainings are great. I did them. It's an hour of your time so that you can hopefully make someone much more comfortable in a very difficult period of their lives. So I don't think you have a single excuse not to do it. And that is my plug of Jamie's Free to Thrive training program. Jamie Johnson, do you have anything to add as far as what kind of approach would have been helpful and was helpful for you personally, or just at large that you see with the other women or men that you help as they go through this?
Well, first, I think Jamie and Armand and I have been working together too long, because I feel like you guys took my answers and I don't know what to say. But just co-sign everything that they already said. I first and foremost, I'm very passionate about bringing a conversation around not justification to buyers and the exploiter actions, but bringing humanity and bringing importance around their stories. Because how do we prevent? It's the same with lived experience within the anti-trafficking movement. We are in this position where we are like, yes, uplift survivors and their voices matter, why don't the voices of the other two parties involved in this triangular issue matter as well? And how are we going to prevent young men and young women from becoming the exploiter or the buyer or the purchaser or the consumer if we don't allow the people that have been there and walked that life to come back into the community and have a chance to really be a part of the solution as well? How long are we going to live in a society that we hold people, we make people continue to keep paying for the worst thing that they ever did when they want redemption and they want to change and they want opportunity to be a part of a better society? So I firmly believe that we need to be a restorative approach, or be approaching our everyday issues with a restorative mindset as a community. It's not even about advocacy towards a certain issue. It's just about caring about the person that you think you're not supposed to care about. And if we can look at the person that represents the person that hurt us the most, it doesn't have to be the person that actually did the actions to you, but it can be somebody who represents that with a label or a title or how they look or their demeanor. If we can look at that person and relate to them on a humane level, on just the fact that they once felt neglected, they once felt like they wanted to fit in, they once felt like they needed to survive. Once we can start seeing others as ourselves, that's when I believe culture is going to shift. And that's when we can start really addressing these issues of rape culture and porn culture and societal just negligence and poverty and systemic oppression and racism and all of these things that Jamie already mentioned, that Armand touched on. The main thing is that we can't change the world until we choose to change. We can't change anything around us until we are willing to change ourselves. And if we can heal that inner child that has all these bias and stigmas towards the people that we claim to hate and want to just lock away and throw away the key, or that we think that we get to label with our own biases towards what a prostitute is or towards what somebody who has been exploited is, and we think that we get to project that onto them, we need to check ourselves first and foremost. And that's really what it's going to come down to. And once we are better people, society is going to be better. And it's really so simple, but so complex, as we all know. And so I guess my advice that wasn't already given is just going to be to analyze self and to not separate yourself from your job. You can leave the stress at work, but you are who you are all the time. And so whether you are defending somebody, your biases are going to come out in your defense for that person. If you can claim all day that you want solutions, but if you look at somebody by this color of their skin, by their past actions, by their past labels, that is going to project in your defense to them, in your conversation to them. And so checking ourselves first and foremost, starting with self, starting with home, is going to be important. And then from there, we can create the ripple effect to impact our community. And yeah, that's my soapbox.
That was so impressive to me because I was also glancing at the questions as you spoke, and I think you covered every single, all the two that I was looking at perfectly, where Stefano had asked, how do we tap into people's empathy on a large scale, which is what you had started with. And then William Lang had said, what kind of misconceptions do people have when they encounter survivors and everything, and how do we as individuals combat those misconceptions? And it seems like it's what you said, where you just have to hold the mirror up and be honest with yourself about your own biases.
And I want to add to it, and Jamie touched on it, and I want to add to, as you said that, like, people do not like to hear like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I feel so bad for you and what you had to go through. You can empower. That's not empowering language. Use empowering language in interaction, not just with people that you are in a position to serve, but just in your language that you talk to with your friends and your children and your family members, your spouse, whatever that looks like. Empowering language is important. Verbiage is important. As I'm so glad that you noticed that the word victim has not been used at all. I don't even like the term survivor for myself. I prefer lived experience expert, because I don't want to box myself in by my 6 years of my experience in that lifestyle or by anything that I've had to overcome.
Jamie, sorry. And all the women I know that have been in the game don't even like the word victim. They hate to be called a victim or a survivor. So like really choose your terminology. It might work in the courtroom for what your outcome is, but please don't call them a victim to them. I mean, people from our particular background, victim's not a good word either.
Yeah, and how do you and empower, and as a resource provider in any aspect, as a lawyer, it's our job to provide empowerment, because the ultimate goal is supposed to be for people not to need our services, right? That's the end goal. And so we have to recognize the reality of the fact that the nonprofit world and this topic in itself has really become a business in itself outside of the businesses of exploitation. It's almost a separate subcategory of exploitation. And so I think being honest with ourselves in what that looks like and speaking to somebody how you want to be spoken to is really just take a minute to take a breath and think about what you're going to say before you say it, and know that once you say something, you can't take it back, even if you apologize for it. And so being mindful of what you are projecting, and is this empowering language? Am I putting somebody in a position to feel like they have a hand up, like Armand said, and not a handout? And am I putting somebody in a position to be able to do it if I'm not next to them? And not enabling people, and also holding people accountable with love, I think is really important, without condemning, because nobody has changed over the years of history because somebody told them that they suck and they're horrible people and you should just stop doing whatever you're doing. They've changed because they saw the change, and they saw the light, and they saw the empowerment and the value in that. So I'm going to stop there.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think that's something that maybe to lived experience experts or anyone that really is involved in the anti-trafficking movement, it might seem like common sense to you all, but it might not necessarily be to the rest of us. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of lay that out, what probably should be obvious to everyone, but making sure that you're telling people even when you shouldn't have to, so that we can understand and try to be better about it, and hopefully just head in the correct direction as a community. And I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but I also, and thank you for putting your information in the chat. We do have some other people tuning in outside the Zoom as well, though. So if you all don't mind, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to find you in your organization if they want to get involved. So if you don't mind just going around giving maybe your website, your social media, and how people can connect with you, and what kind of opportunities they would have with each organization to help out.
Okay, I'll go. So www.sistersofthestreets.org. It's all plural. And all of my social media is attached to that. Instagram, Facebook. I've been told I should get on TikTok. So apparently TikTok is coming, and so look out for that. And also our volunteer opportunities. So right now we are revamping, and we are refocusing on what we need to do. But right now we do always have opportunity to help with finances for direct services. We provide direct services to prevent regressive crisis, as well as emergency services. For anybody who doesn't know, real quick, what regressive crisis, what I mean by that is basically preventing people from being back in survival mode, whether that be leaders like myself and Armand, who have that lived experience, that just kind of come into a hard time and we need help with rent that month. And if I don't get help, then I'm going to probably go back to that survival mindset. And so we try to step in and provide that. But as you can imagine, it gets costly. And so we always need financial support. You're welcome to donate on our website. We are also looking for collaboration on people to teach self-sufficiency skills in some classes that we will be putting out in the future. And what else are we doing right now? We are re-engaging in care packages for survivors. Every month we send out care packages. Just during the pandemic, we switched from street outreach to care packaging. And so we need people to offer products that they would like to donate. Nice products, makeup, skincare, small clothing, whatever you are led to, jewelry, anything that's going to make the person with lived experience just feel connected to the community. And we are also looking for any partnerships as we are creating a resource database for nationwide resources to be able to refer to. And yeah, so just hit us up on our website and we can figure out a way for you to get involved. If we don't have something available, we will make something available and connect you to an organization that you can get involved with. So that's where you can find us.
Thank you. And let us know when the book drops so we can blast that out as well and make sure.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about that because I'm slacking. So Armand's gonna get on me. I'm slacking, but it will be. Hopefully, it'll be soon. It'll be.
I was gonna say, speaking of books, Armand, do you want to take it up next? We've all got a copy of your book here in the office.
You better. We're in this. It is not about money. If you need one, call me. I'll give you one. If you're going to be entertaining the field of dealing with human sex trafficking, domestic human sex trafficking, you have to have that book. It is a resource for you to use. Contact me. I will deliver you one myself. It's that important that you have that in your arsenal of tools. It is a tool that is needed. And yes, we locate us anywhere on social media, pavinggreatfutures.org. And there's numerous ways you can get involved and help. So please reach out if you are interested. Go to the website, look at all the different programs that we offer, to get ideas. If there's anywhere you see yourself fitting in, contact us. We'll set up a meeting and let's get active. We talk good, but we walk even better, and we're all about action. So definitely communication rules the nation, right? So contact us and let's get it together and do some good work and help. You're a puzzle piece too. So let's all be puzzle pieces in this life-changing work that we're all doing. And I have to go. Okay. Right now, our women's entrepreneur program, they're giving their business pitches right now. I've missed the first half of it. And we have some great women. Our program has stepped out. We're servicing women all over, not outside of the country. We have a woman in Romania right now taking our class, survivor in Romania, Hawaii, New York. So I'm going there right now. I love you all. Thank you for this opportunity. And
I can't wait to see who wins the business pitch.
Yes.
me too. I'm like over here like, wait, reading texts. I need to be there.
Right. Bye, Armand.
Thanks, Armand.
Great job tonight. Great presentation. Appreciate you always.
And Jamie,
So we
how about
have-
you describe?
Yeah, one of our clients is doing her pitch tonight, so I'm rooting for her. She's a part of that great program. So in terms of how to find Free to Thrive, free2thrive.org, TO. And on our website there, I put it in the chat, but for those of you not on the Zoom, there is a page to sign up to become a pro bono attorney. There's also a page to sign up if you want to volunteer. There's a place to donate if you feel compelled to give. And if you don't fit into one of those buckets, there's just info@freetothrive.org. Just send us an email. We have people reach out and say, hey, do you need help with this or that? Or would this be helpful to you? And just email us and hopefully it will be. So yeah, just check out our website. And also for those who didn't get the link to the trainings, that's also on our webpage under trainings. You'll find a whole breadth of online trainings that we have for lawyers and community members.
Well, thank you.
Allie, sorry, I forgot one thing. I'm sorry. If
No,
anybody is connected or would like to volunteer, I need a CPA for my organization, like badly, like yesterday. So if anybody would like and love to volunteer their time to help me with my taxes, that would be amazing, because I can't provide services if I am not an active nonprofit. So I would really appreciate any leads on that. Would be amazing. So yeah, shameless plug, but I need that.
Oh,
so.
no, that's what we're here for. We're
Awesome.
just looking for ways to help as a community, and no matter what form that takes. So thank you for making that plug. That's really helpful. And I think we can all kind of spread the word and see if we'll be able to locate someone for you. So thank you both so much for taking the time. David, I'll kick it back to you to wrap us up.
Having us.
Yeah, thank you guys for hosting this and for having us. Jamie, great job. Great to see you and hear you as always. So thank you.
You guys did great. Thank you so much. Allie, you did awesome. Thank you everyone for coming. And for those of you watching, online today, tomorrow, next week, next month, what this is all about is how we could be part of the solution, as Jamie Johnson said, right? Our firm, we do criminal defense in San Diego, but we're sort of in the middle of people's journey, right? Because we're not there when they're 12 or 13 and don't realize that these skills that they have and what they've learned in life can transfer into opening their own business when they get in their 20s, or going to school, or learning a trade, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times we don't see on the back end of the system because we're dealing with, court stuff. So we're not dealing with appeals. We're not dealing with a ton of post-conviction work. But what we're trying to do as a firm here is expand our reach. So even if we're not directly representing someone who's touched by the justice system, or who's about to be touched by the justice system or in the past, we're doing what we can to support great organizations like Free to Thrive, like Sisters of the Streets, like Armand's Paving Great Futures. So, whatever we could do as a community is awesome. And we thank you for dedicating your Thursday night here on May 27th of 2021 to share your story and let us know how we can help. And you have our commitment on behalf of the firm that we're obviously here for whatever you need. And Jamie, I'm going to put you in contact with an accountant. He's based out of Arizona, but he knows a network of great professionals that'll hopefully be able to help. And I'll get that information.
Thank you so much. And be sure, this is recorded, David. So you just offered, like, when you see me in your inbox every other day, remember that you manifested that. So just saying.
You'll get the recording in case I forget. You can remind me.
Thank you all. Thank you so
All
much.
right, guys. So again, thanks so much. Everyone have a great night on behalf of the entire firm. We hope to do this again soon, and whatever we can do to help, whatever you can do to help out there, reach out to these people. They need your help. The community needs your help, and we hope you'll be there with us. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Night, everybody. Nice
Bye,
job, Allie.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you.